National civil rights activist John C. Barnett, who is mentored by Al Sharpton, met with all local press today in regards to the April 26th Myrtle Beach Ocean Boulevard Mass Shooting. It has been 31 days, and Myrtle Beach Police still have not released any camera footage on what happened. Barnett's full press conference can be heard here.
Points for you all, and an update as well, so we'll share that with you.
One more. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Why is that here? Put it on the inside?
Yes.
I can have.
It's just my OCD.
Me too, I'm OCD too. We got it bad.
But here.
Y'all give my hand for his OCD. It's OCD.
I'll have a little bit of that, so that's okay.
All right, we'll start. I think it's 1 o'clock. I'm glad I'm on time. 2 minutes. We'll start. Again, my name is John C. Barnett. First name John Barnett, middle initial C. I think one of the news articles, I won't say a name, said civil rights attorney. So for the record, I'm a national activist. National activist. We're blessed to have traveled to 17 states, no laptop, no website. Things are getting real bad out here, so people will find you if they need you. My mentor is the Reverend Al Sharpton. Worked with him from 2002, 2008. Decided to go full-time in civil rights after I read a story of Dr. King going full-time after Rosa Parks was denied her seat on the bus. 7 days later, he went full-time. So I took it upon myself to go full-time in civil rights. Since then, we've been very blessed. Last year, we got the Goon Squad locked up. 6 officers who decided they wanted to torture 2 Afro-American males in Rankin County, Mississippi. That case has now been settled. Just 2 weeks ago, our client received a settlement for $2.5 million. But it doesn't take away the sting and the sound that he hears at night of that gunshot bullet going through his mouth. So shout out to Michael Jenkins. Thank God that he's still alive. So since then, we've been very, very busy as a very grassroots but very effective organization. We're connected to 33 lawyers in 14 states. We have cases in Apopka, Florida, Atlanta, Georgia, Mississippi, Tennessee, and others. And in closing, we've been, I guess I would say, blessed to get 26 officers removed or sent to jail from their positions, and 33 innocent people released from jail, including Timothy Taylor. Shout out to Timothy Taylor of Charleston, born and raised in McClellanville. So today came here 2-3 weeks ago, staged a press conference with my victims, Miss Kendra, who couldn't be here today. She had to work. She really wanted to be here. We brought her daughter, Serenity. She's was our #1 victim that we connected to our law firm. The lawyer for Kendra, daughter Serenity, and my other 2 clients, which is Xavion in Martinsville, Virginia. Xavion and his father. They are being represented by Miss Sarah Knox here from York, South Carolina. I tell people you ain't got to use a lawyer in Myrtle Beach, as long as they got a South Carolina license. So I'm thankful for that. We sent a lot of requests in for the chief of police. I've been trying to meet with her diligently for the last 2 weeks. When I first did my press conference, I'll give you a little quick timeline, chronological dates. Came here on a Tuesday. I demanded the police report. We need to get a police report of what happened on April 26th. Gave them a timeline of 3 days. They released it on Friday morning, literally 2 to 3 days later. Another request I put in is that I wanted counseling for all 11 victims, which means during 9/11, they wanted us to acknowledge 9/11, even though I don't know anybody that worked in the Trade Center, but I am sensitive to the loss of life. But they wanted us to pray. They wanted us to burn candles. The country took a moment of silence where we have 11 victims out here that were shot. Some by the police, possibly some by the man that's deceased, the young man that's deceased. But since we do not know, it's our job as civil rights to give you all some of the answers that you may not have. I talked to SLED last week for an hour and a half on the phone. Now, the day before our long conversation for an hour and a half, I was supposed to meet with the chief I sent a letter, email request, meeting with the chief. She knows I'm here today. I'm gonna go in here again and ask her for that request. I don't ask no more than 3 times before I initiate direct action. I can tell you all about that later. It may be similar to the Gina 6 project, but we will tell you that we tried to meet. So instead of meeting, SLED agent called, SLED agent Hope, Afro-American female, called me and said, the chief gave me your request, and she said thought it'd be comfortable for me to sit in on the meeting. I say, no problem, I don't care if you're in the meeting, Donald Trump and the chief, I just need to meet with the chief. So in saying that, that meeting was declined. They said they wanted to do more investigation. I said, how long is your investigation gonna take? It's gonna take 60 days, 90 days? They say we should have it wrapped up in about maybe less than 60 days. I say, so until then, my victims need counseling. They need psychotherapy. Because I'm concerned about Xavion's bullet in his arm that they can't take out right now, that I touched on last week when I visited Martinsville, Virginia. I didn't just call Xavion on the phone. I took him a Starbucks gift card. I see you have a lot of people that love Starbucks. Just to cheer him up, because I know at night, in 13 years old, they try to be a little tough. He may not tell his mother about his pain, but he was shot 3 times, mind you. His father was grazed by a bullet. Xavion was hit twice, and one in the leg, that bullet was removed. And there's one in the arm that cannot be removed. And then the other bullet grazed him. Now keep in mind, I told Xavion that in the military, I'm an ex-vet, they tell us when you hear bullets and gunfire, you don't run. You're supposed to hit the ground. And so even in his running, he was still able to get hit 3 times. Now Serenity, going back to Serenity, the first victim, she was shot and the bullet went through her leg. Now at my press conference, 3 o'clock, the last time I came here, at 3:01, after I announced that I'm meeting with the mother at Martinsville and I've talked to her, at 3:01, SLED contacted the mother, Miss Patricia, in Martinsville, surprisingly. Press conference at 3, they called at 3:01. I guess they got access to information. And so in saying that, they called actually seeing if she needed any help, gave her victim assistance information. All of that should have been done the night that they were shot, I think. I think SLED said they did talk to everybody that night, but everybody went home Sunday morning and nobody's heard anything from any victim assistance, not from the chief of police, and nobody had an incident report, which is the first thing you need to move on, and that's the first thing a lawyer needs. So it was just silence until our press conference. So I'm very grateful that all of you all came out today, because I have a little bit of information that you may not have. I want to go back to Serenity. Keep in mind the bullet went through Serenity's leg, so we don't have a bullet. So I told SLED last week in our hour-and-a-half conversation, I said, look here, y'all don't do nothing else. Give me the bullet. I want a picture of the bullet that y'all took out of Xavion's leg. And they said, Mr. Barnett, we don't have a problem giving you the copy of the bullet, picture of the bullet. We're going to go to Martinsville tomorrow and pick up the bullet. So that happened on last week, where they went to Martinsville, SLED, to pick up the bullet. And of course, they're going to test the bullet and see if the bullet came from the 18-year-old or if it came from an officer's gun, who I'm still a little disappointed, because I told them last week, 2 weeks ago, that if I stole some money out of Bank of America, I don't think I'd have paid leave from Bank of America. I would be suspended without pay until the investigation's over. So knowing that this time frame is being prolonged, I don't want these officers, and I'm thinking all 3 fired their weapon, maybe 2. I don't want them to be on paid leave as people are vacationing here at Myrtle Beach. They're sitting comfortable at home. One of my requests is unpaid leave. You can keep them, keep them employed here at the police department. But my request is unpaid. And maybe that will speed up the investigation, knowing that these 3 officers are not getting paid. So that's one of the conversations I'm going to have with the chief of police. She did email me today and said she couldn't meet me this week. She was very busy, couldn't meet me last week, but she told me to send her 3 dates, and I sent her 6 dates, 5 or 6 dates, to meet with her on next week. And my demands are as follows. Number 1 through 4, y'all, counseling for the 11 victims. I talked about 9/11 earlier. America is quick to put things in place during Columbine. They quickly put things in place for Charleston 9. That family received settlements as well. They quickly put things in place for 9/11, but nothing was quickly done for these 11 victims. Innocent people that came here on vacation from Virginia, came here on vacation from Laurinburg, Scotland County, Charlotte, North Carolina, and yet came here to enjoy the water, eat some nice fish, enjoy a funnel cake, and maybe jump on a few amusement rides. And yet they went home with bullets in their bodies. And I believe that, I feel strongly that Horry County really didn't care. So to the mayor, to the chief of police, and to the sheriff department, that profiled a lot of people this weekend. On my way here, a young man said that he was just telling the police, y'all need to calm down, and yet he was charged with interfering with police business. And he called me with no prior record, 10 minutes before I got here, and said he wants his charges dismissed. He's watching us now live. And I told him I would try my best to get his charges dismissed, because all he was trying to do was de-escalate things. But they said, we're going to take you to jail too. So in all their due diligence this weekend, over 100 agents and state troopers and officers was here. A lot of resources were put in place to bring the officers here to monitor Bike Week. And yet nothing has been put in place for the 11 victims. Nothing's been put in place for Serenity. Nothing's been put in place for Xavier and his father and other mothers, some who just left the hospital on last week. Miss Christie's son had a full scholarship, and yet he may not be able to play sports with that full scholarship. So a lot of crying victims, and some who haven't even cried at all, dealing with that pain and suffering. So I'm asking that Horry County create a budget. Why do I say Horry County need to create a budget? Because this is not Chester, South Carolina, not far from where I live. Very challenging. This is not Lancaster, South Carolina. I think number 3 with syphilis, right? So some of these cities in South Carolina are very poor. Let's be honest. The only thing that draws people to South Carolina, and I'm from South Carolina, is Myrtle Beach. We don't have any entertainment and sports. What does that mean? In LA, we have the Lakers. In Charlotte, people come from South Carolina to North Carolina to spend money on the Carolina Panthers, to spend money on the Charlotte Hornets. But nobody's breaking their neck to come to South Carolina. So when I find cities that I travel to, such as Mississippi and Alabama and South Carolina, I realize there's not a lot of sports and entertainment. And sports and entertainment makes money for the city. So there's 2 checks that South Carolina's getting, in my words. They get money from prisons. 27,500 inmates in this state, 68% Afro-American males. The second check that South Carolina gets is the lottery tickets. You all passed the lottery before North Carolina. And that's the only 2 money that comes into the state. So when I find states that's struggling financially, their ultimate goal is to lock people up, be it probation. South Carolina, in my hometown, York County, they charge you for an ankle monitor. Charlotte gives it to you for free. Why is that? Why are they charging $75 to $100 for an ankle monitor in South Carolina, but yet Charlotte just gives it to you for free? Because they need money. So since Horry County, as I checked the records, you have 357 counselors in Horry County. I repeat, 357 counselors. I'm asking that Horry County create a budget for counseling for these individuals and make them feel comfortable about coming back here again. Because Xavier said, I'm not going to Myrtle Beach no more. Serenity said, I'm not coming back here anymore unless I got a doctor's appointment. They don't want to come back. Ease their pain and comfort them to let them know that violence can happen anywhere and bullet doesn't have eyes. So you want them to come back. Not only Serenity and others. I'm sure some people canceled their plans this weekend based on what happened on April 26th. So to the chief, unpaid leave for those 3 officers. I boldly say that. I boldly say that. The goon squad worked for 6 months after they shot Michael Jenkins in his mouth, before we got them sent to prison in Oklahoma for 135 years. They're now eating cold grits in Oklahoma, the goon squad. Imagine still working 6 months after you shot a black man in his mouth. So I want unpaid leave. Maybe that'll speed up Slayer's investigation. Number 3, a meeting with the chief. Got an email today and I sent her 3 dates. I should have an email by now on that date that she confirmed for next week. And my last, something that you all may need, I wanted to do this for my friend Trish Williford and other reporters that I've met down here, Eric and others. We want the body cam. I asked for the body cam to be released. It should be public. And I say that why? Why do you want the body cam, John? I'm glad y'all asked. Simply because at this point right now, we don't know what bullet was shot by the young man and what victims were hit. So I want my clients at night, both Patricia and Miss Kendra, and the father of Xavier, to know that whoever shot them, they know exactly who shot them, so they won't be blaming it on someone else. It's either the 18-year-old who's deceased now, may he rest in peace, or it's one of those 3 officers. And we do have information that a 15-year-old said that one of the officers came outside, I don't know how true it is, He contacted us and said that the officer got on one knee and began shooting through the crowd out of a coffee shop or a donut shop. Now, that's just what I've heard, but I do know it makes sense that everybody seemed to be shot in their legs. Now, if you don't know the story as I close, we'll take some questions. If you don't know the story of Tupac Shakur, which is actually what I named my organization after, I was going to the Main Man March, I was listening to Tupac Shakur, and I said, I'm gonna change that thug into something positive so people will look at it in a different light. So I called my prison outreach at the time in 1995 Thug. It stands for True Healing Under God. Didn't know that 17 years later I'd be sitting behind Michael Jackson and James Brown's funeral. Didn't know I would win 18 MLK Awards, and didn't know I'd be full-time in civil rights standing here in Horry County. But because of that word thug, it was embraced by Reverend Sharpton and others. But the point of what I'm saying is that in Tupac Shakur's lifetime, in Atlanta, Georgia, there was two crooked cops, happened to be brothers, I believe. And they came out of a bar and they was as drunk as they could be. And when they came out, they had a weapon, a gun, and they were picking on Tupac Shakur and his friends in the car. And Tupac, out of his anger, after they walked away and said, I thought you guys were not going to do anything to us. We got guns and we're cops. As they walked off, y'all probably haven't heard this story, Tupac Shakur got out of the car and he got on one knee. And he shot both of those officers in their buttocks. Tupac Shakur shot two officers in their buttocks, the way his mother taught him to shoot on the firing range as a Black Panther. And in the end, all charges was dropped and the case was dismissed. Why was it dismissed? Because we found out later that the cops had stole the gun out of lockup, and that them being publicly drunk is what allowed that case to be dismissed. My point is this: I don't condone shooting cops, not at all. But I do know it makes sense that when Tupac got on one knee and pointed the weapon, you hit below the waist. Maybe in my night times of talking to the mother and trying to figure this all out like you all are trying to do, maybe it makes sense that that's why Xavier got shot in the leg. Maybe it makes sense that that's why Serenity got shot in the leg. So until then, it's just my theory. Until they give us more information, until they give us the body cam, until SLED finishes their investigation. Questions?
John, obviously another two outbursts of violence over the weekend in Atlantic Beach, Little River, the latter of which is obviously the national news. What's your message to people who fear coming to Horry County in the midst of all of this?
I'm glad you said that. The last time I came here, we had like a 15-minute press conference. And they ran everything except what I really wanted them to run. So I hope that you all will run this today. I'm appalled at the fact that when I did my Trayvon Martin rally in Charlotte, and 1,000 people showed up, and a reporter said, "You made history today." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, 1,000 people have never showed up in one place at Marshall Park. But he gave me some numbers. An officer gave me a number, two numbers. 14,000 on top, 13,000 at the bottom. I said, what numbers are these? And why do you want me to say this to the audience? The crowd that was swelling out there in Charlotte. He said in 2012, 14,000 Afro-Americans were shot in this country. I repeat, 14,000 Afro-Americans were shot in this country. I said, what's the number at the bottom? He said, the number at the bottom is a person of the same race, which means 13,000 black people shot 13,000 black people. And only the 1,000, the one that you see on some of your news stations, be it local or national. Isn't it ironic, and isn't it strange, that close to 160, maybe 70 black people were shot by the police last year? But the number is double when you look at the numbers for whites. Why haven't I seen anybody white, not that I want to, be repeatedly showed subliminal messages through these camera lenses, sending messages out of George Floyd? How many times do we need to see George Floyd die? How many times do we need to see Sonia Massey shot in the face? How many times do we need to see Charleston, Walter Scott, being shot 5 times in the back, one of his buttocks? And you mean to tell me the number is double for whites, but they haven't ran one on CNN? They haven't ran one white person being shot on MSNBC. And I don't want you to get shot. I'm just trying to figure out why they ain't spreading the exposure. And so in saying that, I believe that is set up. We're all being played games. We're like puppets out here. So and if you don't know how to dissect what's going on, then you'll fall victim to all of the games that they play. So my main goal is to get unpaid leave for these cops and for SLED to speed up their investigation. They're going to speed it up real quick. So to your response this weekend, my message was that Afro-American males in particular, I speak to you, to put down your guns and pick up a book. Malcolm X memorized the dictionary in prison. Who memorizes the dictionary? Let me give you a little Black History moment. Malcolm X went inside the prison with no glasses on. But if you look at him when he left the prison, he had glasses on. Why is that? Because he damaged his eyesight. Because all he could do was use the guard's light to study the dictionary. And that's how he damaged his eyesight. And in the end, he stood right beside Dr. King as one of the greatest civil rights activists and human activists of our time. So I'm telling young men, wherever you may be it Loris, Little River, Conway, I've been across this state, Bishopville, Myrtle Beach, put down your guns, pick up a book. Questions?
This is a hard one. If you don't want to answer it, don't. Do you trust the Myrtle Beach Police Department?
Do I trust the Myrtle Beach Police Department? I haven't had a lot of experience with them. I will tell you that there was an elderly man who had a stroke, and his speech was slurred. And he called me and said that they've accused me of a DUI. And I came down here and I met with one of the very nice female solicitors. I wish I knew her name. And I told him to quickly go and get a blood test or a urine test. Found out that there was no alcohol in his system at all. But because of his speech and because of his stroke, he couldn't walk the straight line that they was telling him to do. He was using the GPS and he got lost, y'all. So in swerving and moving around in the streets, the cop pulls him over. So it's bittersweet, David. It's bittersweet here for me because they dismissed my client's DUI. I remember coming here in 1987. That's when I graduated, ironically enough. June 7th. Something happened to me that I never forget. There was two white females and a white female driving along the shore, 1987, June 7th. I won't forget it. And I heard the N-word, fly out of the window. Now, why do I remember that? More than where I was 10 years ago for New Year's Eve with Bobby Brown. Why do I remember it? Because it takes 8 seconds, as I told you before, to remember something good in your life. But it takes 2 to 3 seconds to remember something bad. So I guess I haven't had enough dealings with Myrtle Beach. But I will tell you, looking from the outside in, it doesn't look good. That's why I'm always able to meet with people at the table of peace. There's 6 steps to civil rights. Information gathering. Dr. King came up with this in 1957. Education. Educate myself about 357 counselors here and therapists, and y'all can't give me 11 for my victims? You can find a budget. You can find a budget for waterfalls and amusement parks and for extra police to come in here to monitor us this weekend. So surely you can find some money for counselors. So yes, I believe that it will be a learning experience while I'm down here. Go ahead.
Do you think if South Carolina had hate crime laws in place, the process would be different?
Absolutely, because I don't know what happened in Little River. That's what I've been hearing, that there was a white male that shot these people. I'm leaving for Little River when I leave here. Yes, they need a hate crime bill, absolutely, Pastor. Because I know the victims who had a cross burning in their house, in front of their yard. They came to my MLK Medallion Award when I received my award in Charlotte. So I've actually met with that family, and that's one of the things that they're pushing is that hate crime bill. I think every state in this country needs it, simply because of the hate that's been perpetrated. And it's increased. I don't know because of the last president that was elected, but my calls have increased. So if my calls have increased to 50 calls a week, something's going on. And so I think it's a climate of hate. And Malcolm X said this, I gotta tell you this. He said if we don't solve the problem of racism in this country, it's like a powder keg, y'all. And what happens with a powder keg, if enough sparks gets around the powder keg, it eventually will blow. So since we passed Dr. King's holiday and made it a national holiday, we heard the speech, but the speech was not placed in the hearts of men. See, your heart will tell everything, George Zimmerman. Your heart will tell everything, Darren Wilson, 5 times, Michael Brown, Ferguson, been to his funeral too. So I believe that hate crime bill is imperative. And South Carolina needs to be #1 on the list, simply because my forefathers and ancestors came in from the boats of Charleston and Beaufort, South Carolina. And the slave doors was open up in this country in South Carolina. And I'll close in saying this, Cornel West, the great professor, said that 65% of black people in this country came from South Carolina. They have some kind of ties with South Carolina simply because this is where the doors were open for slavery.
So we talk about numbers in this case and kind of what we do at this time. I know you mentioned 11 shots. You said 11 had gunshot related injuries. That doesn't mean they were shot. Do you have any clarification that you got on that?
I've only gotten 4 that I know have been shot because I've visited, and with the exception of 1. So I do know the 4, and I don't know why the others are not speaking out. We've been trying to reach out via social media to speak out. Maybe they was braised and they just don't want to deal with the police. There's a phobia, a silent killer, unfortunately. Someone asked me, why don't y'all file complaints? I'm like, there's a phobia. SLED, in my hour conversation, I got to tell you this. Detective Woods is his name, or Agent Woods, I don't know what their titles are. He had said that we've been reaching out to Xavion's father, but he won't call us back. And we're trying to give him some help. Why won't he call us back? We've called 3, 4, 5 times. I said, because there's a phobia. There's a silent killer amongst black men in the police. We don't just have the greatest relationship. And mainly due because of those images that I just told you about. Be it Trayvon 911 call that's still ringing in my ears. Be it Michael Brown being shot 5 times. 1 in the eyeball, y'all. Be it George Floyd. So because of that phobia, to your response, there's not a lot of trust, so they tend not to say nothing at all. So if they are victims of a bullet and they're not dead, they don't have any broken arms and they don't have any pending surgeries like Xavion, then they're just gonna go on with life without even filing a complaint.
Going back to the conversation, like, they give you any idea of a timeline?
Yeah, yeah. They said. I asked the same thing. I said, is it gonna be 90 days? Is it gonna be 6 months? To my understanding, if I'm mistaken, it was a long conversation. They said 60 days. 60 days.
From when you spoke to them, or from, they said 60 days from when you spoke to them, or 60 days?
60 days. That's a good question.
Because that would have put us in another, basically June 26th.
Yeah. I would think that they mean from the day that it happened.
So.
Because they met with all the victims that night at the hospital.
So they're saying 60 days from April, so June 26th.
That would
when
be.
they're saying, they told you.
That's
their
correct.
Investigation would be.
That's correct. That's the impression I got.
That's what SLED, not Myrtle Beach.
That's SLED only, yeah. And then hopefully when I meet with Chief of Police next week, we'll get more insight. But I guess I got to give them that time frame because they had to go to Martinsville, Virginia to pick up the bullet from the hospital, Roanoke. So they are working. At least they're working now, David.
How do you feel about the open carry, the state open carry law? So, is this going to keep happening? Because it's legal
Yeah.
to walk down the street
With a gun,
not
yeah.
anything.
I hate guns.
And if I'm a cop, I might perceive.
That's
that
right, as a threat, yeah. I think, I hate guns, I'm gonna be honest with you. I hate them. My brother was shot by my cousin over a gun. 3 times in the back, over a pair of tennis shoes, an argument. So if you wanna ask me about guns, I hate guns. I don't want them in the pawn shop and I don't want these kids having access to them. I heard a story in Baltimore, Maryland, that this man just dropped off a bunch of guns in a big old crate. And people were running to the crate and just getting the guns out and running off. He just dropped them off in the neighborhood. And then violence increased that week. He just dropped a case of guns off in Baltimore. And I really believe that happened. And yet violence increased that week because they were shooting one another out of despair, out of economic, being deprived economically and other things, so many other things. Mental. You think after 400 years of slavery, we don't need some type of counseling, some psychotherapy? So, and think of, let alone slavery, look at all the images that I've seen in the last 20 years. From Walter Scott to Trayvon. I mean, every week is somebody else getting shot. If we're not getting shot, we're in court like Diddy. So the images is just not positive. It's nothing to brag about. Guns is killing everybody. Matter of fact, I'll quote what the judge said. I came in 3 weeks ago for a man that had a gun, but he was 17, not 18. And I was in court in Horry County with this young man, and the judge said that in 2020, she went to a judges convention. In 2020, she said that things shifted in this country. Whereas before 2020, the #1 killer in this country was car accidents. Since 2020, it's been firearms, even more so with black males, 18 to 26. So my thoughts on guns, I hate them. Dr. King didn't have one. That's why he got shot in the jaw. Malcolm X said, don't search anybody at the door, and he got shot over 10 times in his chest. I hate guns. I believe in peace, and hopefully we can get some peace down in Horry County.
You spoke about economics, and obviously go over it.
Yes.
Some hotels were down with only 65% occupancy on a prime weekend, past weekend. We've called around, chain restaurants are down 11 to 22% depending upon who you call. Do you believe that this incident, or these ongoing incidents, have hurt and tarnished the brand that is Myrtle Beach?
Absolutely, absolutely. I'd be a fool not to think so. When I heard that when you commit crimes in Haiti, I don't know if it still exists today, that the punishment is public hanging. When I heard that certain countries overseas, be it Africa and other countries, that if you steal something, they chop your hand off. America's too lenient with the charges that people have in this country. They're just too lenient with the sentencing, rather. And so in saying that, to your response, absolutely. I believe that if I had a family and I was coming to Myrtle Beach and I seen that story of 11 people being shot, I would change my reservation and go to Florida quickly. I wouldn't come. I've only been down here 6 times this year. It ain't for the beach. It's for issues and crime, violence. That's my trips to Horry County. So yes, I believe that percentage went down, not because it was raining. People are really realizing that there's some crazy people out here. And people just pull out a gun and just start shooting you randomly. And so if you want to live long enough, it's almost best to stay home and watch Netflix. Seriously.
Do you believe there's anything the city of Myrtle Beach can do to improve relations and improve the situation?
Yeah, that's why I wanted to meet with the mayor, with the chief, to say, let me and you and the mayor sit down at Starbucks, caramel, Frappuccino is my favorite, and let's sit down at a table of peace and come up with heal Myrtle Beach. Heal the 11 victims. Create a positive story in this negative experience that they've had. And so hopefully I'll get that meeting. I'm a peacemaker. I want things to be peaceful. And
You said you called 3 times for a meeting. How
Yes.
many?
3, I sent emails and I called her assistant, Jody Williams.
So you've had 2
3 or 4.
requests?
3 or 4 requests. I've had 3 or 4 requests, yeah. 3 to 4.
That's over your limit. Are you going to keep?
Well, she confirmed this morning. She finally confirmed. She actually sent me an email that said that she's busy this week. Because you got to realize, the first time I called Jody Williams, they told me to go through the process. When I had Serenity here, I walked me inside afterwards and said, hey, let me put a request in to meet with the chief. They said, okay, call Jody Williams. I called Jody Williams, emailed her. Okay, we're going to get the chief to email you back. I get an email, not an email, I get a call from SLED. SLED said, we got the email that you put in, because I put a request in via email. And they said, the chief feels comfortable that I sit down with her. This is the special agent. I said, no problem, let's sit down. Me, you, her, bring the Starbucks. And then the day before we were supposed to meet, I anticipated last Wednesday. They called me on Tuesday and they spoke to me for an hour and a half on the phone and said, we need to hold off because we're still doing an investigation. I said, well, do y'all mind if I still put a request in to meet with the chief, which was my initial request? And they said, sure, but we just can't do anything yet. We want to give you more. I said, giving me more would just listen to my requests. That's my more, is let me present these options to you. So I didn't stop at them saying, we're going to have a meeting, we're going to cancel the meeting. I said, well, let me just go ahead and meet with the original person who I wanted to meet with anyway, me and the chief by herself.
So when you say chief, you mean Amy
Chief,
Pryor,
that's correct.
not the-
Amy Pryor.
not the-
Amy Pryor. Amy Pryor.
Has she given a follow-up date?
Yes, this morning she told me to give her 3 dates next week. And I gave her the 5th, 6th, 11th, 12th, 13th, I think.
And aside from meeting with her, going back specifically to the Ocean Boulevard shooting, can you recap just the specific request you're asking of the police?
Say that again?
Can you just recap the specific request you're asking police to do?
Yes. I have 4 basic requests. Number 1, I'm asking for the city. Horry County can create budgets when they want to, and I don't know if I informed you earlier. You're in the top 10 list as the richest city in South Carolina, whether you like it or not. Kiowa Allen was number 1, I think. They have $1 million houses out there. Didn't know that. But I studied the budget. That's what I do. I told you earlier the 6 steps of civil rights. I make sure I give you all these steps. Information gathering, education, personal commitment. I take time out of my personal schedule to come here and cancel my appointment in Charlotte. Number 4, negotiation. I've been negotiating. I got emails to show it. And then when you don't negotiate, you don't sit down with us, then we initiate direct action. That's my favorite. That's Gina 6. With 31,000 of us going to Gina 6 when 6 boys was headed to prison for a school fight. And we stopped it and turned it into probation. 30,000 people in a city of 2,000. They quickly changed their minds. So direct action is one of my favorite 5. It gets your attention. And then number 6, Dr. King came up with reconciliation. Whether the cops meant to shoot anybody or not, I don't think they meant to do it. I know they was trying to disarm the person or stop the person from shooting. But he came up with reconciliation. They know not what they do. Don't brag because you got a Nobel Peace Prize. There's still work to do. I can't brag about 18 MLK awards when after I get the award, someone calls me the next day and say their son been shot. I can't get excited about that. So my point is that these requests is very simple. Counseling for the 11 victims. You got a budget. Why? You just made over $500,000 this weekend probably. I don't know how much money they make during Bike Week. It's a lot because they double the prices on the room. Is that correct, Yolanda? They double the prices. Number 2, the unpaid leave. I think that will motivate SLED to speed up the process, I think. Because April 26th, yesterday was May 26th. That's 30 days of sitting at home getting paid. And the body count. I think everybody wants to see that eventually will be shown. They did say that the chief at one time, SLED did say this again, they said that they may release it at some point. She may release it, this prop. I asked SLED, why can't y'all get the video? They said that because she owns it, meaning Chief Prop. So hopefully she'll release it. And he kind of scared me. He said she's gonna release her version of the video. That her version scares me, if that's what she plans to do. I want the whole version. Don't take out bits and pieces. We seen that with the Breonna Taylor case in Frankfort, Kentucky. The whole video was released, and it wasn't good. Questions?
So when I've been out before this past Bike Week, a lot of them talking about how over-policed it is compared to the Bike Week beforehand, the Harley Davidson one. Have you heard complaints about that, and what are your feelings about how disproportionate
Yes, that's a good question, and absolutely, I think it's overkill. It's a waste of taxpayers' money, because to my understanding, nobody got killed this weekend, but yet they increased officers. SLED told me it was going to be 100 down here, detectives, SLED, and state troopers, 100. Why do I know that? They said they had a briefing on Thursday morning, so they had to brief. And I know what they do behind closed doors. I'm friends with cops. They look at the flyers of what concerts is coming. This is where the rappers are going to be. We need to increase the police over there because the rappers are going to be over there, right? And this is going to be the after party spot. So they're studying all that. All of that energy, only for people to get traffic violations, maybe registrations, 10 on the tag, which is a new law that if you don't take the 10 off your tag, that's an easy way to lock you up. You can't have nothing distracting the view of the officer, but most people don't know that. I hope y'all know that. So in saying that, overkill, because they mounted up and got all of these resources together, and not only did they have a reduction in hotel stays, nobody got shot, thank God, or killed this weekend. And so I think it's overkill. But at the same time, I know that the violence that goes on in our community, I know the anger that's in our community, and it comes from two areas, being in America and being black. All right. No, anticipating to meet with the chief next week, preferably next Thursday. Is one of the dates that I chose, Thursday, Friday. And if she has any cancellations this week, we'll be willing to meet with her this week. Time is of essence. But again, continued prayers for all of the 11 victims. Xavion is not 23, he's 13 years old. So to know a 13-year-old, I can't even imagine getting shot at 13. 13. He's barely a teenager. So I can't imagine what he's going through late at night. And not only that, the memory, or not the memory, but the thoughts of the fact that you can't even get the bullet out of your arm. So every time he moves, every time he throws a basketball, or every time he eats, that bullet is in his arm. And if they take it out, it would damage the nerve, they said. And he may not be able to use his arm at all, so they just left it in his arm. When Tupac Shakur was shot, may he rest in peace, Suge Knight was driving, I think, the BMW or the Mercedes. And on all of the bullets that came in through the door of Tupac, Suge Knight was shot in his head. People don't know. The bullet is still lodged in Suge Knight's head. So some bullets cannot be removed. Just have to stay there and work its way out, I guess. So our prayers for the 11 victims. I hope that Horry County will honor our request to get some counselors in place. I know they talked about victim assistance, but they didn't call to after our press conference. So hopefully, and that's probably sparked them to call. So I do hope that they can get some 11 counselors out of 357 counselors in Horry County. Please create a budget for these babies, 15 years old. Serenity is in a wheelchair. So y'all don't hear the pain and the cries that I hear late at night. And she might have to go across the stage in a wheelchair, thanks to Myrtle Beach. A wheelchair.
You said of the 11, you've only heard from 4?
4, yes, 4. And then the mother of the deceased. So 5, if you consider that one. And they've all connected to our law firm, so shout out to Hunter and Everett Law Firm and Miss Sarah Knox for taking that case. York County, I appreciate her doing that. So they have, she has all 3 of the victims right now. All right. Thank you. Appreciate all y'all help.